Um, Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. It's 5 minutes after 7. This is the WRT Board of Directors. We are missing Alita and Doug, but we're going to start anyway. I call this meeting to order. The agenda has been out in the shared drive, and I've sent links to it. And I would like to hear any changes or additions or corrections. Otherwise, we will consider the agenda adopted. Are there any changes or additions? Hearing none, we will consider that adopted. Except I did it in the wrong place, so we'll do it in the right place here. The April 2021 draft minutes were out on Google Drive and linked to everybody's emails. I have been doing the minutes as just a notes added on to the agenda so that I don't have to retype the agenda and it's familiar to everybody. So are there any additions, changes, or corrections to the draft minutes from April?
Move approval.
I think we'll just adopt them by without objection, if that's okay.
Aye.
And then communications from the public. I have, well, I don't know how to handle this. We have a situation where we have a plan to reopen the station. We had a station-wide meeting on Monday. There was lots of communications from that, and we will have an updated version of that plan to reopen later in the agenda. So I'm not going to include those as communications from the public. Since the last meeting, we've had several executive committee actions. The hiring committee made their decision to recommend Adrian Ranney for the volunteer and outreach coordinator. It was a wonderful process. Everybody felt great about it. And the executive committee approved that choice and recommendation. Adrian negotiated salary, and the executive committee approved an increase in salary to Adrian. The final thing we did was the decision to engage Catherine Joy to prepare the WORT IRS Form 990. That is in progress. So now we move on to committee and staff reports. There's a lot going on in today's meeting, so fasten your seatbelts and hold on tight. The first thing we have is the Treasurers and Finance Committee report. The Finance Committee meets at 2:30 in the afternoon on the day of the board meeting. So the minutes are there in the document and in the folder for people to look at. We had a momentary panic today when Mary Joy wasn't able to find a bank deposit slip for a deposit that was supposed to have happened. And so she got my anxiety levels up, and then she talked to Karen and they found where that went. So there was no problem in the end. There are several changes that we're going to make. One of the changes that we decided to do at the Finance Committee meeting was to make an appointment with Wegner to do our 2022 audit, our 2021 audit, which is done in 2022 ahead of time so that we could reserve this lot. And the timing is that we finished the spring pledge drive and give Susan time to figure out the accounting for that. And even though that isn't in the audit for 2021, Susan is still tied up and can't get the information for the auditors that she needs to get. So we're timing things very tightly. So that's going to happen. And then Mary Joy gave us.
Excuse me, Dave. If
Yes.
maybe I should have brought this up under approval of the agenda, but since we have guests from Wagner, maybe we could dispense with the Finance Committee report and hear the report from Bruce and Hannah.
I was going to say one more thing and ask Marty if he would mind reading the report of our cash on hand, and then we will go to the Wagner audit stuff.
Okay.
Let's see, are you,
Yep.
do you see the report of the bank balances?
It's there.
Oh, okay. Well, everything looks really good. Our bookkeeper, being new, came in, has some things to learn. She seems very capable, and but she is still behind because of the lack of staffing we had for about a month there. And she finished up just about completely with the January report, which of course means getting in the information, finishing the information of the donations in the past year, putting them where they need to be. So she's just about completely caught up, but we haven't generated any of the usual reports yet. But this is, I think, well, this is definitely the biggest bank balance, and it was of yesterday or the day before that she sent me this. I think it was Monday. So we're in healthy condition. She has no reason to believe we have any problems coming up. We will be talking about in the future about investing in some new equipment, but nothing's been finalized on that yet. So that's $668,651.36 in the bank. And like she puts in her last paragraph there, the PPA loan will probably be forgiven like like the federal government is planning to do. We're just, David's filled out the form yet.
Yeah, it's been submitted. Yep. So.
And so we're just waiting to hear from them. So that we probably won't have to pay back that $100,000 plus.
Yep.
So that's really all I have. I'm hoping next month, so we can next month we can do the budget against expenses comparison for the last few months and catch up on our regular reports to the board. You're going to address that issue, that other issue, David, that we talked about in finance, about some things we need to talk to Wagner about, some suggestions they would have for us.
I've asked for that, and we'll talk to Hannah and Bruce about that when we introduce them in just a minute.
Okay, well, that's what I have, unless there's any questions. But not having all the reports in front of me, I couldn't probably answer them anyway.
Okay, thanks, Marty. Can you unshare, Marty?
Yeah, trying to figure out how to do that. All I see is a leader in the 2020 Gartner Magic Quadrant for Meeting Solutions. I don't see anything from Zoom here.
At the top, does it say about sharing screens?
No, I'm going to close something, and if I go away, I'll come back.
Okay.
Do you still see the budget report?
No, I see
That,
your laptop
bank
or your
account?
screen.
Okay. Well, is it gone now?
I made it go away.
Okay, good.
Okay. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Bruce Meyer and Hannah Lanzer from Wegner, who've done our audit, and have them make their presentation. Take it away, Wegner.
Okay, hello everybody. We will keep this brief since you have a long agenda, and we will get to the question you had asked about reports for the board. Anna sent over an audit presentation, which is bullet points from the audit. Thank you. And I will just go through the first part. Hannah will do the second, and then we can come back to the board reports. The audit has, as in past years, unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that CPAs can give that you have reliable financial statements to use for your decisions, to share with members and funding sources. So that's a good thing. We did not have any audit entries this year, which is also a good thing. That's very different than it was a few years ago when we made many entries as a regular part of the audit. So that's great. This year, there were no changes in accounting standards. Last year, we had a revenue recognition standard. In future years, there will be some other things related to donated property and so forth. But at this point, nothing changed in the basics of your financial statements due to the accounting standards. We did issue a management letter, which has some comments which have shown up before in management letters. I'll just cover them briefly. Certainly, Hannah could get into that in more detail if somebody on the finance committee wants to discuss those. The first one is controls over cash disbursements, which is the accounting jargon for somebody looking at the bank reconciliation and bank statement after it's been reconciled, basically making sure that there are two people taking a look at that. The bank account is one of the chief ways that there can be misstatements and problems at an organization. And so having a second person take a look at that and sign off on it is a good idea. And then the other item there, reconciliation between QuickBooks and Civi, is reconciling the financial books with the donor database, making sure that those two agree. It's very easy for them to not agree. And so taking a look at those monthly or at least quarterly to get them in line is a good idea, so that problems don't creep into that. And then the last item there, the net income was quite high. That does include the PPP forgiveness, since that is quite likely to happen. So that's actually listed up in your support and revenue in the audit of the $99,000. We haven't seen anyone with a loan under or a PPP amount under $2 million who had a significant amount of difficulty getting forgiveness. So certainly there's not really any doubt that that's going to happen. So that's included. And with that net income, very positive. And again, a nice change from some past years, adding to the reserves of the station. So then Hannah will talk about the financial highlights, and then I'll come back and close up and talk a little bit about your question about reports for the board.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think just a couple of comments on the internal controls. I know that due to COVID, that definitely shifted the normal practice in March. And so I don't know that the normal practice for cash disbursements ever resumed to really what it was before. And so that's part of the issue there. And then for the Civi QuickBooks reconciliation, I think that was primarily due to staff transitions. And so with Suzanne leaving, that created a kind of a backlog in that reconciliation happening towards the fourth quarter and needs to be resumed. So as far as the financial highlights go, we have, again, as everybody's noted so far, certainly an increase to your actual assets simply due to the net income and the cash received. This year is increased by about 220,000, and then only a little bit of increase in total liabilities, about $8,000. And so we like to look at what we call the liquid net assets without donor restriction, which is essentially your reserve, informal reserve, I guess you could say. And that's almost 545,000, which is up from 354 last year. And again, anytime you have a net income, that's certainly going to add to that, and it'll help when you have losses in years. So currently, that's the equivalent of about 9 months of your total expenses. So we like to look at that number in relation to your expenses, so you know how much you can kind of rely on that reserve for. Again, revenue also increased due to an additional CPB grant above and beyond your normal grant for the station, and as well as the PPP loan. So those are two amounts, about 75,000 and 99,000 there, that are adding to your bottom line this year. If we look at your expenses based on the different areas that they have to be categorized, overall, not a huge change. There was just a bit more shift to program expenses and a little bit less in fundraising this year, but that's good to see some consistency in the functional categories. So, and then again, cash is increasing by about 192,000, and as Bruce noted, the PPP loan of 99,000 was treated as grant income essentially in 2020 because of the application for forgiveness. So that is detailed in note 10. And we're not going to kind of walk through anything in a specific manner, but here's where you're sitting at total assets of about 715,000. So again, a very nice place to be. Certainly a good, healthy, robust position to enter 2021 into. So, and then we kind of look here, we can see the contributions were strong even with COVID, and then CPB came in as well as your PPP loan. So that is the overall financial highlights. I think there was a question earlier about presentations and to the board, and so what kind of reports you should be looking at. Bruce, you have some ideas?
So
Yeah.
just to give a background to that, Bruce, before you start, the Finance Committee wanted to know what things the Finance Committee should present to the board every meeting to give the board a thumbnail idea of what is the financial health of the station. So we, at the very last minute, just an hour ago, asked Bruce and Hannah if they could present a few suggestions to us. And so thank you for responding so quickly when we put you on the spot.
Sure. No problem. Typically what boards do, if they have any formal procedure, is to have, something that many folks call a dashboard, and then they decide what it is they want to have on that. So for instance, having your cash balance on there is a good idea. Having something like revenue compared to budget or revenue compared to last year is a good idea. And so you can go through and pick out what is it that the board really wants to know. Those are typically two things that are very important. And then it might be, something to do with cost control, maybe, personnel costs compared to budget, or something along those lines. Generally, you wouldn't see a set of financial statements except perhaps quarterly, maybe less often than that, because oftentimes you're not getting a fully reconciled balance sheet every month, just because of the amount of work involved in that. So if you wanted to present something monthly, just some snippets, cash balance, possibly, how pledges are doing compared to budget, how revenue's doing compared to budget, and then maybe expenses, total expenses, or just personnel expenses, since that's generally your largest expense.
Thanks, Bruce. Um, our expenses were different in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic and because the station closed to volunteers. And so staff really went to extraordinary levels of work in order to keep us on the air and to work with volunteer programmers in many cases to produce programs from home, and in other cases to take shows out of the archives, edit the shows to remove some of the out-of-date material in the archives and insert current announcements and so on. So we'll address that a little bit later in the agenda tonight, but that explains why our payroll went up in 2020. So.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason that, you know, comparing to budget, if you have one, or what I've been talking to organizations about is that 2019 might be your better comparative year. At least once we get a couple more months down the road and hopefully things are more normalized, that 2020 is not going to be a good comparison for most organizations.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And in terms of income as well, because some of those loans were just because of the pandemic. And so the loan and the CPB grant will probably not repeat in 2021. So. Thank you very much. To the board, do you have any questions about the audit? Any comments? I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
now.
Bye, thanks.
They had a last minute change in personnel. The auditor who worked with us left just before they finished the audit. So Hannah had to finish. And so we worked with Hannah at the end there. So Marty, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of the treasurers or finance stuff? I think we've covered everything, but I want to make sure that I didn't forget.
No, I think we have. I think we've covered it.
Okay, good, good. The board contract negotiation committee is Stu and Gil and I, and we've made great progress. We will have a meeting, a closed session at the end of this meeting to discuss that topic more clearly, but I think we're close. Did you want to comment, Stu? I don't hear you, Stu. Stu, you're muted, I think. Or broken.
My understanding, we're closer than close, that we have a tentative agreement,
Yes.
which we will report to the board for its ratification in closed session at the end of this meeting.
Thank you.
It was a very, very productive, I think we only really had 2 bargaining sessions, and it was a good collaborative process. Glenn, I see Glenn and Shali are with us. You won't be in the closed session, but anything you want to say about the process of the negotiations while we're in the open session?
I'm good, but thank you.
Yeah, I thought everything went real well. Our union has some great people who helped us all through it, and it was very collaborative, like Stu said. And so Dave Poklankowski and Nate Rasmussen were very well organized and well prepared, and it made things the smoothest I've ever been in negotiations.
Well, I think one of the undeniable factors is that the station is in a much better place today than it was the last time we had negotiations, and that certainly made everything a whole lot easier. It's made everything easier on many fronts, but certainly on contract negotiations in particular.
I appreciated everyone's extra effort to make it happen. virtually because it's not easy. So thanks, everybody. I was pleased with it too.
Thank you. Moving on, the Elections Committee report. Is anybody here from the Elections Committee?
I think you missed the programming committee report.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. The program committee. There was a committee report from the programming committee. There were no action items. That I recall. Do you recall, Stu?
No, well, Kurt is here. I mean,
Kurt, do you want to comment? Thank you.
Yeah, there were no action items.
Okay. And policies and bylaws did nothing this last month. Election committee, we have 3 candidates for 1 listener sponsor seat and 2 candidates for 2 participating member seats. In my agenda, I have the names. So the listener sponsor seat candidates, there's 1 seat and there are 3 people running for that, and that's Kurt Cobelt, Dean Loomis, and Ben Fairfax, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And for the participating member candidates there, Rebecca Barber, she's boss lady who does the show on Sunday morning from midnight to 3 a.m. Saturday night, Sunday morning, and Kai Brito. Kai is also a current volunteer at the station. Back in the listener sponsor candidates, Kurt is our incumbent. Dean Lomas has been on the board in the past. Any questions about that?
Just a correction, it's Brito.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm confused. So the seat that I am vacating is which one?
You are a participating member. You're a volunteer seat. So
Really? I had a
there's 2.
volunteer seat? I never understood that, okay? Because I definitely, okay, fine. That's it, answers my question.
Great.
I like the wind chimes there.
That's not mine, but because I qualify for being either one, so I guess I was never really sure which seat I was filling, but that's okay.
The bylaws stipulate that if you qualify for either one,
okay.
should run as a participating member as opposed to a listener sponsor.
Okay, fine. That's it. No further detail needed.
All right. Personnel committee report. During the check-ins we've been having, and I confess that I have not had my check-in with Susan yet, and she and I have been trying to find a time where both of us can get together, and I haven't had that yet. So hopefully, well, in the next few days. But one of the things that we identified was Aaron Scholes has been putting in almost full-time or full-time during the pandemic. And we think that it would be fair to change his status to full-time. And that would, of course, make him part of the collective. And Aaron is willing to make that change if the board decides to go ahead with that. So I would like to open that up for discussion on the part of the board for comments. And anybody who's here can make comments or ask questions.
Should that be in closed session since it's personnel, or since it's a new position we don't?
That's a good question. If you'd like to make a motion to that effect, we could move that to closed session.
Before you make that motion, Eric, could we invite comments from Sybil in particular and other staff members so that we know the thoughts of the collective on this? I think you're probably right. It should ultimately, the action should be in closed session, but I think it would be helpful for the board to hear from Sybil, and if they have anything to add, from Glenn and Shali as well.
That mirrors my thoughts exactly, Glenn, or Stu.
Well, you know, this is why I made certain that I could have access to this board meeting while I'm driving, but Dave.
We just lost you, Sybil. Did everybody else just lose Sybil or just me?
Yep.
Sybil, we lost you.
I don't know what the rest of the staff was told or heard about it. but
Sybil,
we
Sybil,
did
you need to start over. We lost everything up until what you just said.
Okay. Well, Dave called me to let me know that this was something you were considering. He, informed me this was being considered by the board. And then I talked to Aaron and we, discussed how we would split up the duties. And, most certainly there is plenty of work to be done and continue to be done, especially as we shift things to more of a, digital fashion. But I am a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that, the next thing that I saw, or that either of us saw, was the proposal on the agenda. And that, there was no discussion or input, chance for me to give any input before this. And the staff collective, there's going to be some impact on the budget with this. We were not able to discuss it as a whole. I would have brought it to them, but I really had very little information, no timeline, except Dave informing me this was going to happen. So I feel like perhaps the process is just a bit rushed here. I'm fully in support of it, but I don't know where. I feel like it should have come to the staff collective for input because it impacts the collective, and sure, it's your decision, but we had no chances to do that.
So are you asking us to refer it?
Well, I perhaps would. I don't know what the rest of the staff thinks, but I mean, if you're going to plan, I guess, if you plan to do more, like if you discuss it and you plan to vote and make this reality tonight, I'm not certain it's quite the right process. And I think that we should perhaps just go through referring it to the staff and to get back to you next month.
Thanks. Shelley has comments too. Are you done, Sybil?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Shelley, could you go ahead?
Sure. Hello. Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. So where do I start? So Aaron has taken on a lot of responsibilities during the pandemic. I work with him and Sybil to coordinate programming, and I'm walking up a hill, so sorry. And I work with Aaron frequently, as well as Sybil. And I did actually bring this up at a staff meeting a couple months ago, I think. And that was perhaps unfair to Sybil, so I apologize that she wasn't there when the meeting started. And so, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right, that was unfair. But Sybil informed us that she would then meet with Aaron to kind of discuss all of that and how that would work. I know our regular board or staff rep to the board isn't here tonight, but I know that not all staff is on board with making Aaron full-time, or at least have concerns about making him full-time, mostly fiscal concerns. When that conversation came up at the staff meeting, Doug did run the numbers about making Aaron full-time. I can't remember what they were, but Doug does have them. So, that should absolutely be part of your decision before you make the decision, is a fiscal impact. But they have been run. And so I know that we haven't really talked about it at the staff meeting since then, but it's my understanding that Sybil and Aaron are talking about what that might look like. My personal opinion, I'm not speaking for the staff collective, is that programming is so much. And I know I only have approximately 30% of that in news and talk, and music is 70%. And I can absolutely see how he would use those 40 hours in a pinch, and actually maybe take over some things that are maybe more overlooked, and both in my department and maybe Sybil's, and be able to really make them shine. So I mean, programming is the basis of our content, of what people consume. And I think it's worth investing in. I realize that, you know, we're not WPR and we don't have all of the money that they do to do stuff, and other staff would like other positions added. From a programming perspective, I think it's absolutely a worthy investment. So yeah, I agree with Sybil that I don't think you should make any decision tonight. I think there's a lot to consider. And if the staff is considering it and planning to bring it as a proposal, maybe it would be best to come from us, but that would mean we have to talk about it. So I'm not sure where we are there, but yeah, just some thoughts.
Thank you. Gil, you had a question or
Yeah,
comment?
no, I think that Shelley sort of got at what I was going to say. It just seems to me like we have two choices in terms of the way the agenda is laid out tonight, and what precluded Sybil and Shelley talking about it being something that we were going to take up and decide on in closed session, whether it really makes, and Stu also saying whether we should refer it. I'm not sure whether he was saying refer it or defer it. So to the next meeting, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, they're functionally the same, but I'm confused because my understanding from Dave, my understanding from your email of May 3rd was you talked to Sybil tonight about reclassifying Aaron to full-time. She is okay with it.
Okay, so obviously there's a misunderstanding there from what Sybil told us. I mean, I'm not,
Mhm.
it doesn't sound like to me that what Dave characterized to you was what Sybil just told us, so.
Right.
Well, I was okay with, you know, the idea.
Right, no,
thought
I
that
understand
it was
that, yeah,
gonna
there's
be a collaborative process
right,
that, you know, we need to
exactly, no, I
draw
understand,
up a
right,
job description and agree on it.
right.
No,
And then,
Actually, no. An amended job description for a new position is a board function.
Can I say one more thing?
well, someone needs to do that, and I would think you would want our input. And also, I'm not sure, can you add a collective member without doing an open hire? I hope so, but we got to check that.
Yeah,
Shelley.
I just wanted to kind of back up Sybil here, and that, like, we still do have to sort out, you know, I left it to Sybil when she told me to back off, which I totally respect. But there's a lot to figure out in terms of position descriptions, what Aaron would functionally take over. I think there's something from every single department that he could take over, if that's, what we decided. So there's a lot for him to do, but we have to actually specify what that is, and if it's worth investing the, I don't know, $15,000 to do that. Oh my God, look at that queen. So, you know, I think this, if the board doesn't make a decision, it's incumbent on the staff then to come up with a plan and to get working, as we're also doing all of these other things. And then to have staff consensus on it, which, as I mentioned, there isn't. So,
Yeah. So thank you. Is there more? Sorry, I don't need to cut you off, but yeah, it seems to me that this is my perspective anyway, that, I mean, Stu's first response to Sybil saying, are you asking us to defer or refer, which we didn't get a really definitive answer to, is that I would say that it should be deferred or referred until there is something a little bit more substantive from the collective, whether it's a complete consensus or not, but something that indicates that there actually has been a serious discussion about this among the staff, and that we can take it up at the next meeting. So that's all I have to say.
Shelley adds in chat, can we put a deadline on that though?
Glenn has a comment, Dave.
Glenn, go ahead.
Yes, I do think it would be good for staff to discuss it. I think that this came up as an agenda item that had to do with contract negotiation planning when we hadn't even really started planning yet. And as Charlie said, she brought up the idea at a meeting at which Sybil was at a dentist appointment and she joined the meeting late. So we really haven't had a chance to talk with Aaron either. And I just think that would be a good thing for the staff. I mean, Aaron is part of most of our staff meetings, and I think it would be really good for us to all talk together. I also want to refer to the process for hiring my replacement. There was a substantial effort that took several months to get a really good job description together, okay? And I think it's worthwhile taking the time to get a good job description for the position. And I don't know what the answer is, if we have to, do an open hire, or if we can just, promote someone to that position, particularly because they've been doing a lot of the duties during the pandemic. But we would need to explore that to make sure that we're in compliance with CPB rules. So I do think it's worthwhile to have the staff talk about it with Aaron and to take some time to craft a job description. And as I started talking to the staff about my position in leaving in December, and we worked on the job description in January, it went to the board in February, and we had a job description at the board meeting in March. So it took a little while, and it was a much better job description overall because of everyone who had input. Marla had some significant input, Stu had some significant input, and it turned out to be a really good job description. And I think it took a little bit of time. So I don't know if it could be done by next month, but anyhow, I do think it would behoove us to have a good discussion or several discussions at the staff level and start working on a job description.
I just want to be clear that the decision whether or not to create a new full-time position does not depend on the staff collective or staff consensus. It is a board decision.
Yes.
Under the existing management right to.
Stu, I agree with you about who got the power, but I think the staff needs to complete needs assessment of what's not being done or not being done well, or
I'm fine with that.
The staff should be doing the needs assessment, which could inform the board's decision about whether or not to do this. So
Right.
I think that's what we're getting at.
Right. I just wanted to be clear that it ultimately did not require a staff consensus for us to act.
Oh, yeah, no. And I didn't actually mention consensus. I just said we never had a chance.
One of the three of you did.
Okay. What more, we didn't.
Yeah, I know Susan is
We didn't
opposed.
have a chance to discuss it even. Now, Aaron and I have met now and made a lot of progress and made notes. So we are ready to bring it to the collective and get on it at the next meeting. So we are ready to move forward on it. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So,
Dave,
this is Dave, and I wanted to say that I was the person pushing this the strongest. I don't want Aaron to get pushed back to part-time status before we've had a chance to make this change. I think that what he's been doing while we've had no volunteers at the station in terms of putting people's recorded shows on the air and editing shows from the archives has just been tremendous duty. And he has, even before that, shown what a great asset he is to the station. I think this is different than a hire because this is a change in status, not a new hire. But certainly the board welcomes the staff comments and input and work on what the job description should be. So if Stu,
Yeah, Dave, I would make a motion that at the request of the staff, well,
hang
Marla's
on,
seeking
Marla has a
Marla's
question.
seeking recognition.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I think Shali said something very significant that we should think about besides Aaron, and that is the needs assessment of what the station needs in terms of staffing. We're just talking right now about programming, but I do think that you have, maybe we're giving them this opportunity, you know, because Shali said in her comments, oh, we've thought of other positions we wish we could have. I do understand and I'm in agreement with you, Dave, that we should be taking a look at Aaron and making sure that if he is going to be full-time and continue to be full-time, he gets all the benefits that go along with that. But if there's another need for staff, then we should know about it. So please think about that and let us know if there's other things that you need. That would be really helpful for us to help you. That's all I wanted to say.
Dave, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Stu.
At the request of the staff members, because it's not the position of the collective, but at the request of staff members who are at this meeting, move to refer the issue of changing the music assistance position to full-time to the June meeting with a directive with a request to the staff collective to begin to discuss internally and with Aaron a needs assessment and propose changes to that position's position description.
And Stu, if I could add a friendly amendment to that, specifically that they, apologies, I haven't.
Obviously not a friendly amendment.
You don't want to cry. No,
don't cry.
It's somebody's bedtime here.
It wasn't you screaming, Stu.
I think just the two things would be with an eye toward whether the long-term financials for the additional position make sense and what the board needs to do in terms of CPB compliance for this hire. I think what Glenn had mentioned about, the open hire issues potentially, we need to make sure that we're well clear of those.
Well, I
think the staff can handle those things.
Yeah, well, I think the issue of the long-term financial implications goes
it's already been addressed.
board, that's the board's determination based on the needs assessment that staff identifies.
And we also have already some data from Doug that will feed into that, right? I mean, he presented some of that already.
He presented information about the contract changes, not the addition of.
No, I'm not sure. What I remember, Dave, is that, I don't have it in front of me, that he looked at the finance. He looked at the money. Okay, so that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think we should be able to include that in a needs assessment or proposal. I look terrible to the board, because I know Doug has preliminarily run those numbers, so that should be coming if you don't already have it.
Sorry.
Yep, that'll be no problem.
My motion doesn't have a second yet.
Second. A second.
I'm slow.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm Marla.
My computer isn't working great, so I can't tell when the mic's working and when it's not.
All right. So
Well,
what
I
I
would-
have taken in
go
my
ahead.
notes here, Stu moved, Rosie seconded. At the request of staff members, we moved to refer this to the staff for their review, including CPB implications.
Well, it was to refer to the June meeting of the board with the request to the staff collective to meet expeditiously and discuss internally and with Aaron needs assessment and a potential position description. And maybe we'll be ready to act at the June meeting. Maybe we won't, but I think we need to put at least an initial deadline on it so we can keep things moving expeditiously.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how would you need it, like, would a week in advance of the June meeting to have, us finish and communicate with you, or, just let us know what your deadline would be, because it would, you don't want to have it at the meeting. You want to get the information before.
I would think that a week before would give the board adequate time, for my mind.
And who would be the most informed person to review the issue of the technicality of what the CPB requires regarding the
Doug.
Doug, okay,
He takes care of that, Grant.
okay. So
Yeah, if
obviously,
they require it, I would hope maybe we could even get an exemption or something, because things are different. It's a, special case.
I will check my notes from the FCC EEO workshop webinar. There might have been something on that.
Thank you.
So, but that's not CPB, but it's FCC. So,
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, no, finish your thought, Glenn, before.
It has to do with how widely you cast the net for it's the FCC EEO reporting. So if you have a full-time position, you have to actually anything over 32 hours. So Aaron has been 30 hours. So if you go to 32 hours, and there may have been something about that in terms of how you last filled like how you hired that person in the first place. Was there a wide net when you hired Aaron at 20 hours when he started as music assistant? So I'll try and look into that too. And there also is the WBA hotline or free legal services. Charlie's used them before. So.
And well, I mean, I think our attitude was we weren't quote creating a new position. We were expanding an existing position to meet the reality of what the job has been. And as a second matter, I think informally we had designated the position as production director, because obviously it wouldn't be music assistant, but that's how we were conceiving of what the position would be and how it would be styled. But that, it's for discussion.
All right. We have a motion and a second to refer this item to the June board meeting. Further discussion? All in favor of referring, please signify by showing me a thumbs up or saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Okay. The motion carries. On to the agenda. Security Committee has been inactive. Community Advisory Board report is in the drive. There were no action items. Technology and Facilities Director report is in the drive. There were no action items. There was no minutes for the Engineering Committee meeting, but there were no action items at that meeting. The Business and Events report was in the drive from Doug. There were no action items. It was a very thorough report. The Listener Sponsor Development report was in the drive. There were, well, my draft minutes don't show all the stuff that we did, so I want to try to bring that up. There I go. Susan had concerns about the number of listener sponsors declining over time and of the revenue from listener sponsors declining over time in her report. And she doesn't call that an action item, but it's something that I wanted to address. But before I do that, I also wanted to add something else that she had new in her report for this month, and that is that in order to conform with the credit card industry's standards, we're not going to allow volunteers to take credit card numbers any longer. So during the next pledge drive, which is June 1st to June 7th, if people want to donate via credit cards, the only way we're going to support that is online now, not over the phone. The problem is that there's a liability if something happens to a credit card number that's been given to somebody who's a volunteer. If something happens and that credit card number gets out. So, and this is in compliance with industry standards and with the way other radio stations are doing drives. So that doesn't require action on our part. It's just Susan informing us that it does.
Can I make a comment to that, Dave, please?
Please.
So I've been thinking about that one because, you know, we want to get the money, right? And I think that there are people that would struggle with finding it online, but I agree that every time I wrote down a credit card number on a slip of paper, I was nervous for us. I was thinking if we could change the, you know, the slip that we write the information down on, take an email, we could follow up with an email that's generated template that said, thank you for calling in your donation. We know you want to use a credit card. Here's the link to the exact page to do that on.
Good idea.
Do you think that, I mean, I think it would be very little money. We're just printing out a few more of those forms just differently. And it would help more people close the deal as opposed to having, you know, I'm answering the phone and I say, oh, shoot, I can't take your credit card. Please find us somewhere online. I think we should keep a list and we could generate that real easy in Google and then just ship out emails. Thank you for your your commitment. I guess we can't say donation, but thank you for your commitment. Here's the link to fill out the correct form online so people aren't fishing around. It was just
Can I follow up on Rosie's suggestion? It's a great suggestion. I do just want to let you know that Susan tracks down people who don't pay. So they're or can't pay, right? Who have pledged but haven't actually donated yet. So she does, that takes a significant amount of her time. So she does do that as well as Karen. The other thing is that Tom puts a large-ish donate banner right at the top of the web page. So typically you'll hear on-air volunteers, hosts, as well as, you know, guidance to just look for the banner at the top of the screen that says donate. And that's where you do it. So it's on our, I mean, it's already on our homepage, but it's even more obvious. And I think Tom can actually make that even larger if need be. So I don't know. So yeah, we've been doing that for a while. So I don't know if that is an actual problem that Susan identifies that needs solving. I don't know, but I would love to hear her.
We haven't had to do this yet.
Oh, sorry. You were cutting out.
Problem yet because we haven't had to do this yet. And with my background is helping folks with technology, and you'd be surprised how many people couldn't find your website, much less know to click on it.
No, I would not be surprised. I deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that discussion should involve Susan before the board directs her to do something, because yeah, she's open to feedback, but I don't know if that's an issue.
Yep.
So I thought that the way Dave presented it was that she was just informing us that we have to do this, right?
Right.
Right. And so we can't take credit card numbers. We shouldn't have been anyhow. If someone calls in and tries to make a pledge like they're used to with the credit card number, the person who is answering the phone needs to have something to say to them now.
Susan will take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay, just so I understand. So it's not that we can't take credit card numbers over the phone anymore. That's what I'm trying to figure
No,
out.
we can't take credit card numbers.
We haven't actually been able to do that for about 10 years. It violates something called PCI, which is handling of credit card information. It's a very large liability. It worries Tom immensely. It worries Susan immensely. And they are finally deciding not to do that. So no, we can't take it. If it's paid employees who undergo like a background check and that kind of stuff versus volunteers.
Oh, all right. All right. So that's a different issue then. So, but we've been doing it for the past 10 years, or am I incorrect?
We've been doing it and it's not in compliance.
Okay. And what does not, I just want to get clear, what's not in compliance mean? What could happen to us?
We could be fined $100,000.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I didn't hear that, you know, what's the.
Yep.
Good.
The downside is we'd lose a big amount of money.
Yep. And potentially, if it got bad enough, we could lose the right to take donations for a period of time, period. And so we went through an audit.
Thank you.
So people can if they send an email to Susan and
Susan did prepare like an estimate with a very long email to staff about this, where she said she is not concerned about us losing a significant amount of money with this change. So I can forward that to you, but I would direct that question to her before assuming that.
Not a problem. We're not having to do anything in this meeting, so we're fine.
Just one last thing that confuses me that probably nobody can answer right now. How is it, because there are so many scams online that people can access these numbers, that this is a real issue? I mean, I just don't get it, but I understand how that stuff works, but it just seems really odd to me.
They don't want people taking credit card numbers who haven't been trained.
I get that, Dave. No, I get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just
Susan's
because you
been
send them to
trained.
that link doesn't mean that somebody can't rip off the number.
But there's insurance involved through our banks and stuff, the processing company, and so there's protection.
If they go to the link on the webpage, it's hard for people to steal that number.
Yeah.
And we don't have a volunteer in the middle as a middle person. But the other question, oh, I hate technology right now.
Just right now?
I wish I had a recording of that, Dave. You saying that.
The menu bar disappeared from the bottom of my Mac computer, so I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Oh, there it is. It's over on the other side. For some reason, it decided to go. I've got two monitors open right now, so it went to the other monitor. All right.
Are we done with this agenda item, Dave?
No, we're going to the next part of the agenda item, which is I am proposing that the executive committee deal with the question that Susan raised about the number of listener sponsors declining and the amount of revenue from listener sponsors declining. And the executive committee will meet with Susan and follow up on that and act as a liaison between the board and Susan and find alternate ways of getting our message out there. And the problem is fewer young people own radios than older people. And so there's got to be different ways of engaging with the younger audience that don't involve radio and real-time broadcasting over the radio. So that's what we have to talk about. but I don't want to set up a separate committee and have a long process. I want to have a more direct discussion with Susan and finding small steps that we can take that will make a more immediate difference rather than to hiring a consultant or something like that. So, and
So are you asking us all to meet with her? Or are you looking for someone that's willing to talk to her and come back to the executive committee?
no, just the executive committee and anybody else who's interested. If you're interested, we'd love to have you. Excuse me. Couldn't find my mute fast enough to sneeze. Shally, we will welcome your input there as a younger person than me. So
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to bring that back to DEI as well.
And Dave, not only is Shally a younger person, but as of this evening, she is another gold level award winner from the Milwaukee Press Club. They've just released the documentation of the awards we won, and Shally is one of 2 gold winners from WORT. So it was good.
Yay!
Where are you finding
Yeah,
that?
nice.
Woo, woo, woo.
Where are you finding that? I can't find it.
The Milwaukee Press Club Twitter feed had a link to the brochure, the full
Oh.
awards documentation.
Okay. Sweet. Thank you
Congratulations.
for my doula story. Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
Congrats, Shally.
oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the chat.
As I say, she's one of 2 gold winners.
Congratulations to, I'm assuming you are the other.
Thank you.
Nice. High five.
Thank you. Congratulations, Stu.
Congrats, Stu.
Yay. Woo. Woo.
And
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you finish.
Well, Jonah, Martin, and Shally also won a silver, and Jonah and Jennifer Fields each won a bronze. So 5 nice awards for the station.
The black cat is meowing for you.
All right. Music director report is next. Sybil put something in her staff report, and she also attached a separate proposal to allow filming at the station. That has been available for people to take a look at. I don't think we need to get into the details of that right now, unless there is a question on a staff report. Stu, do we need a motion, or can we just vote?
Well, I think, no, we need a motion. Committee
Okay.
reports don't need motions, but staff reports and staff requests do.
Okay.
So I'd move to approve the filming as outlined in Sybil's memo with protocols to be as indicated or as amended by staff.
I'll second.
Hang on. Your typer is slow here. So Rosie seconded.
Marla.
No,
Who
Marla
seconded?
did.
Pardon?
Marla did, not me.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion? Questions? All in favor, say aye or raise your hands. Eric, are you there?
I'm here.
I can't see a raised hand or,
I'll give it a thumbs up.
okay. All those opposed say no. Are there any abstentions? The motion carried unanimously.
Thank Thank you so much. This is going to be great.
We look forward to great stuff. Susan has
Yeah.
been talking to Sybil about what kind of videos are needed for fundraising. So this, I think this will be great.
Absolutely.
There was a diversity, equity, and inclusion report. There were no action items. Oh, there's an award ceremony at the same time as the board meeting, so poor Shally had to choose. Okay. That's not what I meant to do. So I think that that's all the business we have in open session tonight, unless anybody has anything to add.
Do we still have a closed session? I thought we addressed.
Yes, we're gonna have a closed session to consider the contract as proposed.
Do we have to discuss the COVID task force?
Oh, that's right. We missed the, where am I? See, that's what, okay, you're right. Thank you very much, Marla. Boy, that would have been terrible for me to miss.
After all that.
Thank you so much. Boy, I'm just.
It takes a village.
It sure does. We had an open station meeting on Monday to discuss the proposed opening plan, and there were several changes, and staff modified the plan, and the modified plan was in the folder for everybody to consider. One of the items was that programmers who are still programming from home can make appointments to come in and peruse the music library to get music for their shows. I can't remember what the other item was. Are there any discussions, questions, comments about that plan?
Yeah, it couldn't hurt you, Stu.
Yeah, Dave, the other item was to clarify that certainly in phases 1 and 2, and whenever the only people in the building will be vaccinated, that programmers in studio with the doors closed do not have to wear masks as long as there are no unvaccinated people in the studio with them. And
stemmed out of a confusion about what on-air volunteers meant. Sorry, you can't see me. Because people had questions at the all-station meeting about, well, if I'm on air, if I'm not on mic, can I still not wear a mask? And we're like, yeah, that's
Yes.
fine. As
Yep,
you go
that
back
was
and
clarified.
forth. So
Yep.
And I think these two suggestions and the collective's response show the real value of the general community-wide input, because it was Brian Hirsch who brought up the issue of the lending library of coming in on a brief appointment, and staff responded very quickly and affirmatively. So I thought that process was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I was very impressed. It shows that people really support this station in a constructive way. I expected more negative responses, but I think that went really well. I think that also indicates to me that we need to have more all station meetings. We've kind of resisted in the past because it meant getting a venue and bringing everybody into the building. But now that we can do them over Zoom like this, it's a lot easier to do an all station meeting. So there's less of a disincentive to doing an all station meeting.
Dave, do you know how many people it ended up being? I know we were counting at the beginning, but
I think about 75. There were 3 screens of 25 each. So
wow.
It was pretty amazing. That's the biggest Zoom meeting I've ever been in. So.
Wow. Yeah.
And it shows that people really care. So, and people were very respectful. I got pretty negative response from Dave Watts early on, but I talked to him personally. I emailed him personally, and I think I soothed his concerns. And I'm surprised he wasn't at the meeting, but the change in the CDC guidance, and then the way that the Public Health Madison-Dane County changed things, saying essentially that after June 2nd, there won't be a mask order. The current one will expire and they won't put a new one in place. Will also probably cause us to loosen our standards a little bit, but also our experience with the first two phases will help guide us in the next phase. So in any case, are there any questions or concerns about the plan as we have it in preparation for our opening up the question of voting?
I don't want to mess with the plan in any way, but I just have kind of a question that's tickling at me.
Certainly.
What, and maybe I should know this already, but what kind of safety, late night, somebody's there alone leaving, do we have any safety things, cameras, motion lights, anything?
Do you mean in terms of the pandemic issue, or do you mean in terms of
The
safety?
only reason it popped into my head was the pandemic issue, and as I'm reading, it's like as few people as possible, and then that made me think it through. That
We have had cameras for quite a while out front, if that's what you mean.
I'm sorry.
And there's one at the back door too now,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
record. They record as well.
Yeah,
When we went through
they've
the
been there
shooting,
since after the shooting.
yeah, that was raised as a concern, when we had an all-station meeting about it, and when a lot of these issues kind of emerged about how maybe not secure we were at the time. We do have 2 functioning cameras that we use, and you can actually pull them up in the studios and watch when you're in, so you can see who's at the door. We do have better locking mechanisms for the doors. I know we did a couple other, we switched to actually locking the doors, or something about locking the doors, and having that be a policy that's followed more and is a check, like the last staff member to leave or the receptionist to leave will lock the door after a certain period of time. And I know you've seen those doors are pretty hard to get into. So we did go through that after the shooting about what can we do to make the station safer. As a former late night host, I totally felt like a sitting duck, and I totally hear you that that's a valid concern.
So if I'm not mistaken, we took away the ability to unlock the front door from inside. There used to be an unlocked knob on the inside, and I think that's gone now. And it certainly is gone from the back door, so that you can't inadvertently leave the door unlocked.
I can't remember. I wish I was at the station.
Yeah, but in any case, we can do that if not. But
I don't think that's true of the front door, but we have
Okay.
just kept it locked all the time.
right.
And we also have the passcodes by department now, so we're able to better track who's coming into the station. So
Well,
news, music, staff.
That's a different question that I wanted to have a door access
Fobs.
system that used fobs or cards or something, so that everybody had a code, so that
I know.
we log who comes in and who comes out, and rather than, because if somebody comes in to do bad things, they're not going to go over to the login sheet and sign in. So
Oh no, I know.
so
That's cool that you can see from inside the studio. I didn't know that. Okay.
yes, yep, and from the front reception desk. So in fact, from any computer.
Anywhere. Yeah.
Yep. And if you use the VPN like me, you can see from home who's at the door. So, and Tom can see that. So,
Yeah, exactly. When there was all the crazy rioting going on, we would check the front and back door just to make
Mhm.
sure there wasn't anybody around.
right.
I'm coming down tomorrow at 2, okay? Can you just check to see if I show up?
We'll track you from your door all the way in. No, only the NSA can do that. But so, other questions about the reopening plan? I will entertain a motion about the reopening plan.
I so move. Marty.
Is there a second?
Second.
I was impressed with the meeting last night, or Monday night, was it? Also,
Yep.
How thoughtful and considerate people were. And the ideas that they presented were well thought out, so.
The more you stay associated with this station, the more appreciative you are of the community that supports us. So, board members, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Eric Finch, you need to. Okay. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Thank you very much. That carried. And ring the bell. That's good. Megan, did you have anything to say about the DEI meeting? There was no action items, but since you're here.
Yeah, no action items, as you said, but yeah, we met last Wednesday. We welcomed a new member to the work group, Ankur Malhotra, and that was nice. And we talked, just sort of brainstormed a bit about just some sort of vision work with our new working group member, and folks set up some ideas around engaging historically underrepresented communities and misrepresented communities, and engaging folks through a community journalism sort of project of sorts, and thinking of that as sort of like, how do we use that as a relationship building effort? And so I typed those notes, sent it out to the group, and both Susan and Shally had some questions about it. They also have, well, they're currently working on programming around, community journalism, and thinking of, been thinking about this, I'm sure, for a long time. And we're hoping to get our heads together in the next meeting, if not before, and work through some questions. Shally's brought up some great questions, and we're hoping to work through some of these ideas through some of that logic model toolkit that we've been looking at to help us answer some of these questions, identifying resources, who's going to staff this, what is this helping us reach our ultimate goal of relationship building, or is this like creating sort of, anyway, siloing more work off to, like Shally or hers, with that, we want it to be sustainable, and we want to make sure our ideas, intentions, efforts are aligned, and with staff, and ultimately with what the communities were involved, wanting to engage with. And so the idea was to come up with a proposal for the June meeting, but again, I think that in a similar fashion to what Stu brought up with another action item, is like we want to get the ball rolling on things. We want to use it as sort of impetus to start really plugging things out, not dragging our feet. And so of course that might not happen getting it in June, but at least we'll start thinking about it and what's feasible and sustainable over time. But anyway, yeah, so that's it. And I had a nice time talking to and welcoming our new member. But yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's all we have for the public items for this meeting. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns that you'd like to address? Any new business to add before we go into closed session? Hearing none, is there a motion to go into closed session?
Move to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing a collective bargaining agreement with IBEW 2304.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
Technically, Dave,
Aye.
it's got to be a roll call vote. I hate to
Oh,
be
okay.
technical.
Okay. So Gil,
Aye.
Marty,
Aye.
Stu,
Aye.
Rosie,
Aye.
Marla,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Kurt.
I need to recuse myself, and I think I should probably leave the meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
I
Bye,
appreciate
everybody.
it.
All right. Bye.
Aye.
And Megan.
Aye.
So oops.
St. Bernie's bell is ringing. It's 8:30. I don't know why they're ringing it, but
Okay. So thank you very much. I am looking at the comments here in the chat. Okay.
Do we have to do a shout out? Should we do that after we close or open again? A shout out to the receptionist. There was
oh
something on
yeah,
the,
right.
We should.
It was on the end. If I saw
It was on the end, but we shouldn't really have any other items after this closed session.
Right.
I'll just tell you what's going to happen. Glenn is putting together the list, and he's going to give me a suggested wording of an email, and I will edit that, and then I will send that out as president. And if that's okay with you all, I don't think a motion is needed unless you all want to move something.
no, I just didn't want to miss out that opportunity.
No, we're going to definitely do that. And
Okay.
and Glenn is
Would you be willing
strongly
to
pursuing.
say on behalf of all of us?
Yes, most certainly. That was the intent. I should say that, but I should say it intentionally. Sorry, I'm getting punchy. So, Shally, we'll need you to leave.
Hi, Shelley.
Sorry, got distracted. Bye. Good luck.
Yep.
Bye. Congratulations.
We're now back in open session. During closed session, the board moved to ratify the contract as amended by the negotiating committees. Thank you very much, everybody. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
No move.
Stu, 1.
Yeah, this was our longest meeting in a long
Second.
while.
A lot of business, though. Really great
Yeah, a
work,
lot of good
everyone.
business.
Right.
Going through a lot
Well,
of
we're getting close to solstice, so we could go for longer.
Oh, you're funny, Gil. You're funny. You're obviously retired.
And,
See if we can get to the
Dave,
longest meeting
you'll
here
you'll
next month.
communicate with Nate and Poke that we've done this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dave, for all the
Night.
work.
Thanks,
Night,
Dave. Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night and good luck.
Yeah.
Night and good luck.
Okay,
Night and
good
good luck.
night. Okay, bye.